There's a moment, 1 second in time, where your whole understanding of loyalty shatters. For me, that moment was standing in the doorway of my apartment, frozen, while my boss and my girlfriend scrambled to cover themselves under my bedsheets. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's rewind. My name's Eric. I'm 29, living in Nashville, Tennessee, and up until a few months ago, I thought I had a good thing going. I worked as an operations lead at a fast-growing logistics startup. It was intense. Long hours, tight deadlines, constant pressure to scale, but I thrived in that chaos. My best friend, Zach, had been with me every step of the way since college. We were roommates at UT Knoxville, co-captains of the intramural basketball team, and had gone through the same unpaid internships and late-night pizza-fueled side projects. When I landed the job at the startup, I pulled him in with me a few months later. Different departments, same grind. And then there was Liv. She worked in marketing at a different company. We met through mutual friends, hit it off instantly. She was all quick wit and southern charm, the kind of woman who made even ordering takeout feel like an adventure. We'd been dating a little over a year, and things were getting serious. We were even talking about moving in together. She'd started leaving some of her stuff at my place, and her toothbrush had taken permanent residence in my bathroom. Life felt stable, familiar, trustworthy. Then came that Thursday. Our department head, a guy named Grant, called me into a sensitive discussion. Now, Grant was slick, MBA type, designer shoes, rehearsed empathy, motivational books on his shelf that he clearly never read. He always smiled too wide and asked how your weekend was just a little too late in the week. But he was my boss, and I played the game. He sat me down and said bluntly, "We've got to make a cut. Finance says we're over budget. It's either someone on your team or you." I froze. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," he said, like he was offering me a handshake, "you're going to need to let someone go. And between you and me, it should probably be Zach." I laughed. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. He laid out a neat little case. Missed KPIs, technically true but explainable, interpersonal concerns, which came out of nowhere, and what he called low vertical potential. It was bull. Zach worked hard, sometimes harder than me. He stayed late, took on extra shifts, and never once complained about grunt work. I pushed back, hard, told him this felt personal. Grant didn't blink. "You've got until Friday," he said, "or I'll make the call myself. And I can't promise you won't be next." I went home that night and stared at the ceiling for hours. I didn't tell Liv. I didn't tell Zach. I just sat there, nauseous, trying to decide whether I was a coward or a survivor. The next day, I did it. I called Zach into the conference room and told him we were letting him go. He didn't get angry. He didn't yell. He just looked at me like he didn't recognize the person sitting across from him. "You knew this was wrong," he said, "and you still did it." I couldn't even answer. After that, he stopped returning my texts. And honestly, I didn't blame him. The weeks crawled by. Work got quieter without him. I poured myself into it, stayed late, barely saw Liv. When I did, she seemed distracted. Her texts slowed down. She canceled dinner once, said she had a migraine, then posted a story from a bar downtown. I chalked it up to stress. We were all frayed. I didn't press. Then came the night that tore everything down. I had a late client meeting that got rescheduled at the last minute. I figured I'd surprise Liv with takeout from her favorite Thai place. I parked outside her building, but realized her car wasn't there. Weird. She said she was staying in. Then I had a thought, a bad one. And I did something I've never done before, and hope I never have to again. I drove home, quietly opened the door, walked into my bedroom, and saw my boss, Grant, tangled in bed with Liv. Both of them froze. Sheets. Silence. No words. Just betrayal. Raw and sharp. I didn't say a word. I just turned around and walked out. The first thing I did was sit in my car for what felt like an hour. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even text anyone. I just stared through the windshield at nothing, like if I stayed still long enough, the whole thing might rewind and undo itself. It didn't. Eventually I drove, not anywhere specific, just out. I put my phone on silent and headed west, past the city line, through back roads lit only by the occasional gas station or diner. My thoughts weren't sharp, not yet. They came in waves. One second I hated Grant, the next I hated Liv, and somewhere in between, I hated myself for not trusting my gut, for firing Zach, for being so blind. I ended up crashing at a motel off I-40, didn't even brush my teeth, just laid on top of the covers and stared at the popcorn ceiling until my body finally gave out. By morning, the numbness had curdled into something colder. Resolve. I went back to my apartment, half expecting to find Liv there, waiting with tears and excuses. But it was empty. I checked the bedroom. The sheets were changed. Her toothbrush, gone. She'd cleaned her mess before I even processed mine. I showered, shaved, and walked into work like nothing happened. Grant was already in his office when I passed by, sipping coffee, tapping away at his laptop like he hadn't just detonated my life. "Morning," he said, like we were teammates, like I hadn't caught him sleeping with my girlfriend 12 hours earlier. I just nodded. My face gave nothing away. I wasn't ready for confrontation, not yet. I needed leverage. The next few days were a blur of quiet planning. I started pulling old internal reports, reviewing Zach's evaluations, found inconsistencies, notes that didn't match up with his actual performance metrics. I checked Grant's approval logs, and sure enough, 2 weeks before I was told to fire Zach, Grant had requested to adjust the review system permissions for all team leads, including mine, which meant he could edit evaluations, including mine. I kept digging, and that's when I found the smoking gun. An expense report submitted under a client code we'd stopped working with a year ago. Inside it, a string of hotel stays and restaurant tabs dating back 4 months, all in the same neighborhood where Liv worked. He was seeing her while she was with me, maybe even before the firing. Maybe that's why he wanted Zach gone. Maybe Zach knew. It all clicked. The awkward distance between Zach and Liv the month before, the sudden coldness in her when I started pushing back at work, the weird energy I couldn't place. They were all protecting a lie. So I did what I should have done weeks ago. I called Zach. He didn't answer. I left a voicemail. Just one sentence. "I know why he wanted you gone. Let's talk." He texted me 5 minutes later. "You buying the beers?" We met at a dive bar just off Nolensville Pike. Cheap drinks, pool table, no chance of running into tech bros. He looked rough, tired, unshaved, guarded. I didn't waste time. I laid out everything. The report edits, the fake expense codes, the affair. He nodded slowly like he'd known parts of it, but never the whole thing. "I saw them once," he said quietly. "Liv and Grant, downtown. I didn't tell you because I wasn't sure, and I didn't want to believe it." I looked down. "You should have punched me when I fired you." He smirked barely. Thought about it. Then his face got serious. "So what now?" I took a long sip of my beer. "Now?" I said. "We burn him down." We didn't go scorched earth right away. No viral tweets, no HR complaints, no anonymous email bombs. This wasn't about revenge. Not yet. This was about making sure every move we made hit with precision. Zach and I started meeting in secret. Late-night calls, parking lot huddles, burner emails. The whole thing felt ridiculous, like we were plotting a heist, not taking down a glorified middle manager. But this wasn't just about Grant anymore. It was about reclaiming our self-respect. Both of us had been blindsided, manipulated, and thrown aside, one personally, one professionally, by a guy who smiled through his teeth and played everyone like pieces on a board he didn't even earn. And now, finally, we had the receipts. Zach had saved everything from his time at the company, emails, reports, even Slack messages that had long since been archived. One thread in particular stood out. It was a private chat between Grant and a junior team lead, asking her to flag Zach's performance a little more aggressively so they could start a paper trail. It was time-stamped 3 weeks before the day Grant told me I had to be the one to let Zach go. That was enough to show intent, and that it was personal. Meanwhile, I kept collecting data on the expense fraud. Grant had been submitting false reimbursements using dead client accounts, hotels, dinners, even a flight to Denver marked as a stakeholder site visit. That stakeholder, Liv. I'd never seen her in Denver, but there she was, tagged on Instagram with a Mountain View cocktail 2 days after that exact flight. Every lie just made it easier. We gathered everything into a clean, well-documented report. Labeled folders, indexed files, even video screen recordings showing the inconsistencies in the employee evaluation system. We put it all on a flash drive and uploaded a cloud backup. Then we drafted a formal letter and requested a private meeting with corporate compliance. It felt weird walking into HQ in a collared shirt like it was just another Tuesday, knowing what we were about to drop into their laps. The director of compliance was a woman named Janet. Sharp eyes, no-nonsense tone, the kind of person who asked few questions and already had the answers. She didn't blink when we laid it all out. When we finished, she sat back and asked one question. "Are you both prepared for how ugly this could get?" We nodded. She gave the smallest hint of a smile. "Good, because if this checks out, your boss won't just lose his job. He might need a lawyer." That night, I didn't sleep. Not from anxiety, from something I hadn't felt in weeks. Relief. Like finally, the weight wasn't on my shoulders anymore. A few days passed. Radio silence. Grant carried on like nothing was wrong, still strutting through the office like he built the place with his bare hands. Then Friday hit. Janet showed up. 2 people in suits flanked her. Legal, I assumed. They went into Grant's office and closed the door. 15 minutes later, he walked out pale and tight-lipped, a company-issued cardboard box in hand. He didn't look at me. Not once. He didn't look at anyone. Just kept walking. A week later, I got a call from Janet. "Thanks to your cooperation," she said. "We've opened a full audit. Your job is safe. As for Zach, we'd like to bring him back, with a pay bump, and a new title." I asked if Grant was being charged. She paused. "I can't comment on that yet, but let's just say he'll be very busy for a while." I met Liv one last time. She reached out, a simple text. "I owe you an explanation." We met at a coffee shop. Neutral ground. She looked different, nervous, no makeup, no performance. "I don't know why I did what I did," she said. "He was persuasive, powerful. You were always working. I felt invisible." I didn't respond. "You don't have to forgive me," she added, "but I never meant to hurt you like this." I looked her in the eye. "You didn't just hurt me," I said. "You exposed who you really are." And with that, I left. 3 months later, everything had changed, but not in the way I expected. Grant's name was quietly scrubbed from every company doc. His email account deactivated. A memo went out announcing a leadership restructure, and that was that. No farewell cake, no fake applause, just silence, the corporate way of erasing people they're embarrassed to admit they empowered. Zach came back, officially this time. New title, bigger salary, his own office down the hall from mine. We never really talked about what happened with Liv after that night in the bar. Didn't need to. It was a silent agreement between us. What mattered more than revenge was making sure no one like Grant ever got the chance to do that to anyone else again. As for me, I stayed. But I wasn't the same guy who walked into that job a year ago, eager to prove himself to people who'd trade integrity for a nice dinner and an expense code. I worked differently now. Quieter, sharper. Less about being liked, more about being real. My team noticed. So did leadership. Turns out when you remove toxicity from a system, everything works smoother, including people. Then, one day, Zach knocked on my office door with a smirk. "You hear the rumor?" he asked. "What now?" "Liv's working at a branding agency in town. Guess who her new client is?" I shrugged. "Some AI-driven hiring platform," he said. "They're big on values-based leadership." He grinned. "You can't make this stuff up." We both laughed, the kind of laugh that only comes after you've been through hell, survived it, and come out smarter on the other side. That night, I walked home. No car, just me, the cool air, and the sound of Nashville winding down. I passed the old corner bar Liv used to love, saw a couple slow dancing through the window, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel sick. I felt free. This whole mess started because I trusted the wrong people. But it ended by learning how to trust again, and who actually deserved it. Sometimes the worst thing that ever happens to you is also the thing that clears the ground for something better. You just have to be willing to lose what's fake before you can build something real.